And welcome to Local Body 2013, Dunedin Television's guide to this year's local body elections. I'm Dave Gooselink and I'll be meeting with some of the candidates standing for your vote in the Dunedin City Council elections. Let's take a quick look at the three wards in the Greater Dunedin area. The largest is the Central Ward, where most of you watching tonight will live. There are 35 candidates standing here for 11 seats on the Dunedin City Council. There are 2 seats on offer in the Mosgiel-Tairi ward and 3 candidates standing for your vote here. And finally, Waikouete Coast Chalmers, where sitting City Councillor Andrew Noon has been re-elected unopposed in the single seat there. Now let's take a look at our schedule for the rest of the week here on Dunedin Television. Tonight we round up the City Council candidates standing for your vote in the Central Ward. Tomorrow, our attention turns to the 2 smaller wards. We'll meet the 3 candidates in the Mosgiel-Tairi ward and chat with the sole candidate in the Waikouete Coast Chalmers ward, Andrew Noon. And finally, on Friday, we'll meet the 9 candidates standing for the city's top job, the Dunedin Mayoralty, in an extended length special. Tonight we'll be meeting 8 more candidates standing in the Central Ward. Let's find out a little bit more about our first group this evening. Chris Staines is currently Deputy Mayor in his second term on council. He believes his experience leading one of Dunedin's most successful businesses and working with community, charitable and business organisations serves him well. He's standing under the Greater Dunedin ticket. Ginty McTavish is a first-term councillor who believes she's offered a fresh perspective at the council table. Her focus is on projects and policies that make communities more sustainable, resilient and connected. She's also standing under the Greater Dunedin ticket. Tat Liu moved to Dunedin from the North Island in 2007. He's a technology entrepreneur, manufacturing specialist and registered chiropractor. He's worked for the likes of Carter Holt Harvey Packaging, Marine Air Systems and Deloitte Consulting. And finally, Conrad Stedman. He's a real estate consultant who says he's enthusiastic about the city. He's also deeply involved in community ventures and says he's approachable and enjoys representative roles alongside his busy work and home life. Now, as with previous shows, we'll begin by giving each candidate 30 seconds to explain why they deserve your vote, and that'll be followed up by a few questions from myself. We'll start with the left of the panel, first up with Chris Staines. Tell us why you're standing for re-election for the Dunedin City Council.
Well, I've been a councillor for the last 6 years and Deputy Mayor for the last 3. 20 years as General Manager at Fisher & Paykel and directorships on a number of business and charitable organisations gives me very strong business and governance skills. I've used those skills to help deliver changes to the management and governance of the city's finances. Dunedin is now in a much more stable financial position. It's time to build on the hard work of this council. I'm seeking a third term to help move the city forwards and make it one of the world's great small cities.
Thank you, Chris. Now, obviously, as we said, you have been a councillor for a couple of terms. Tell us why you want to continue the work you've been doing.
Well, as I said, it's building on that hard work that's gone in. You know, the city has a number of issues, particularly related to economics and its economic development. I've got a great passion for that, and I've spent quite a bit of this triennium working on the economic development strategy, so I want to see it delivered.
Do you believe the council is generally moving in the right direction?
I think it is. I think we've made significant progress in the area of stabilising our finances. That was really important before we could do anything else. We're in the situation now where for the first time we're going to be paying off more debt than we are taking out as a city. So it's time to move forwards.
Excellent. We'll hear more from you later in the show. Chris Staines, thank you. Moving on to our second panellist this evening, Ginty McTavish, also a sitting councillor. Tell us why you're standing for re-election for the Dunedin City Council.
Kia ora, Dave. Kia ora koutou katoa. As Dave said, I'm really passionate about the role that local government can play in delivering sustainable, resilient, connected communities. I think we've done some really neat work in Dunedin over the past 3 years to enhance the ability of the Dunedin City Council to play that role. Energy, cycleways, finances being some of those critical areas. I'm seeking your vote in 2013 because I'd really like to play a part, and I think I have some of the skills that are needed to continue that work. So I'd appreciate your support.
Excellent. Now, Jinty, tell us you're a new councillor coming onto council, what's been the steep learning curve?
There have been a few. I think that, as Chris said, we've come in at a really challenging time in terms of finances. There's been some really big debt issues that we've needed to deal with. So I think that has been one of the big issues. However, the previous council also, I think, eroded a lot of the trust that the community had in governance processes and the council in general, and we've had to slowly try to earn that trust back. Being
a new councillor and a younger councillor on council, do you think there is room for a younger voice? Has that been welcomed?
Yeah, well, I've been the youngest by 20 years on the council, which has been a bit of a challenge in and of itself. But yeah, look, I mean, I think there is. Maybe my colleagues they'd be interested to hear their views, but I think it's important that we have a really representative democracy here in Dunedin, and in the past I think it perhaps hasn't had that youth voice. And in a city where you have a third of your population is under the age of 35 or something, I think it's important to have that voice at the table.
Excellent. We'll hear more from you again, Jinty, later in the show as well. Moving on to candidates number 3 in our first half this evening, Tat Lou. Tell us why you're standing for election in the Dunedin City Council.
Sure, Dave, thank you. I come from a private sector background. I'm very interested in seeing Dunedin develop in terms of regional economic development, but I think there's a strong focus on understanding that the future for Dunedin over the next 10 years is not going to be the same as the last 10 in terms of mega trends along the lines of climate change, fossil fuel use, and just making Dunedin, distinguishing the city, in fact, as a great, sustainable small city which will attract talent and attract new business.
Thank you, Tat. Now tell us, you're saying you moved from the North Island. What brought you down south? Yeah,
I'm actually a Palmerston North lad and worked extensively in the North Island, in Wellington and in Auckland. And then I suddenly realised that actually I was probably missing out on the best part of the country, and so decided to head down here to Dunedin.
Okay. Now tell us the background that you've got in a range of sectors. What skills would that bring to the council table?
Right. So from my point of view, I think that attracting visitors to Dunedin is extremely important, and we have a very important tourist and education industry. But manufacturing is the basis of any strong local economy. And so with my manufacturing background, I really do think that that should be a backbone of a sustainable economy, especially the green, clean types of technology.
Excellent. We'll hear more from you also, Tat, later in the show. Our final panellist for the first half this evening, Conrad Steadman, a first-time candidate. Conrad, tell us why you're standing for election this year.
I'm concerned about the effectiveness of the last 3 years with our local council. I'm running for council not as a lifestyle choice, but wanting to be part of a council with my unshakable belief that we can make the city a great city and one of the best small cities in the world.
Conrad, thank you. Now tell us what your background you've got. What skills would you bring to the council table?
I'm very direct, honest, lots of integrity. I'm a former policeman of the city, Rotarian, very community orientated. I care about people a lot. I'm passionate about people. I'm passionate about the city.
Watching council operating from the outside, what do you think they're doing right or perhaps wrong?
I would like to see discussions actually dealt with. John Wilson Drive, for example, that went on and on. Make a decision, yes or no. Is it open or closed? Don't carry it on. There's going to be unhappy people. There's going to be happy people. We can't please everyone. Just make a decision and move on and stop wasting money.
Excellent. Conrad, and we'll also hear more from you later on in the show. Well, there's your initial hearings from the candidates this evening for our first half. We'll be back in a moment with questions for our first panel, including the issues of economic development and cycleways. Back in a moment. Welcome back to Local Body 2013, where we're here with another group of panellists standing in the Dunedin Central Ward for the Dunedin City Council elections. Starting with a question for the whole panel this evening, with Chris Staines. I'll start with you on the left. Firstly, to all candidates, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing Dunedin City over the next 3 years? Chris?
I think the biggest challenge is definitely our economy. We've seen our economy decreasing over the last few years. We need to grow our economy and grow jobs with it. We've got a brand new economic development strategy which we've put a lot of effort into, and that's a stakeholder group run effort, and I think we've just got to focus on making sure that grouping drives the city's economy, and that will put us in a position to do so much more.
Excellent. Jinty, for the next 3 years, the biggest challenges?
I agree with Chris. I think one of the key solutions that we need to be working on, and rapidly, is how we retain our young people. And the support mechanisms that we have in place to ensure that those young people see Dunedin as a viable place to do business and to live, I suppose. Secondly, also the district plan. We're going to have a big review of the district plan over the next 3 years. That's a critical platform for us to be working on.
Great. Tat, for you looking from the outside, what do you see as the biggest challenges?
There's a number, and I think that regional economic development is key amongst them. And really to push ahead, I think that we need to distinguish Dunedin as a really sustainable city. And I understand we may be looking for a new CEO very soon. Paul Waters may be leaving, so that might be number one on the agenda for a new council.
And Conrad, for you, the next 3 years, what sort of challenges?
Obviously, it's economic growth and better housing for all of our people in Dunedin. Firstly, I think we've got to start being positive in this city and having a council that's actually interacting with the small businesses, the large businesses and our people, getting back to the people and asking what they actually, how they're going to do it and how we're all going to do it together.
Right. Thank you to our panel. Continuing with a theme that was brought up by some of the group there, what role do you see, Dunedin made the news, the national headlines for all perhaps the wrong reasons this year. What role do you see the council playing in Dunedin's economic growth and regional development? And I'll start with Tat in the middle there. What role do you see the council is playing in this area?
I think the council needs to communicate and partner with the private sector much more closely. We do have the engines here, the basis of a real knowledge economy, and so between the university, the Polytech and other researchers in town, we should make the city a real smart green city.
Conrad, for you, economic growth and regional development, is that a council priority?
Most definitely. We've got to start communicating with the likes of ASEA out in Green Island, Natural History. You know, these are successful businesses that can lead the way around the world. We've got the hub there of the university and the Polytech, some bright people that want to actually stay here. We've got to use those brains. It's not about so much sending products out of Dunedin, but using that information. We've got to use those universities and the Polytechs, but talk to the big businesses that have done it and proven.
Chris Staines, obviously the council's been involved very heavily recently with ag research and various other things. What role should the council be playing in economic development?
The key council role is really making the city a place where businesses want to come and people want to live. So they've got a catalyst role in that regard. There's already a very, very strong partnership between the city and business through the Grow Dunedin partnership, which is the group charged with delivering 10,000 extra jobs and $10,000 a year increase in the average household income. So I think we're well placed that way.
And Jinty, finally, what do you see as the council's role in this area?
I think we have many roles. I think one of them is around procurement, and we've started that work to look at how we can better support our local economy through council procurement. But I agree with Chris. I think that if we're competing as a low-wage economy, that's no way for us to compete. We need to compete on quality of life. We have incredibly high quality of life here in Dunedin, and we need to protect that.
Excellent. Coming to another question for the whole panel. Now, there's been a big increase in focus on cycleways around the city, with more to come, and it's been in the news again this week, potentially at the cost of some inner-city parking. I'll start with Jinty this time. How do you feel about the issue of cycleways and how that relates to parking?
I've been a real champion of the cycleway rollout over the last 3 years, and it's something I'm really proud that we're making headway on. in terms of the relationship with parking, when you have cycleways that really cater for cyclists and the large number of people that do wish to cycle but are too scared to for safety reasons, that means that you actually alleviate congestion on the traffic network and you alleviate the demand for parking, for car parking. So I think it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, but I don't think that the problems I don't think the problems get to be as big as some people make them out to be.
Tat, what do you see as the role of cycleways in the city?
I think cycling is a good low-carbon way of getting around and very important. I do support spending on the cycleways up to date and in the near future. However, I do think that there needs to be more emphasis on taking personal and private vehicles off the road, which will alleviate the need for additional spending in the far future for cycleways.
Conrad, for you, cycleways and how that relates to parking and other issues?
Firstly, cycleways are important. I like to ride my bike, but I like to do it in safety. If it's for recreation, cycleways, they can be put on the back burner, but most importantly, it's the safety. And if a few parks have to go, well, I'd rather have people safe and not getting killed on our roads. At the end of the day, what's a life worth?
Excellent. And Chris, for you, the increased focus on cycleways, something you support?
Very much so. I've been chair of the Parking Review Committee for this triennium, and I can tell you, everybody believes that a car park is the start of our economy. People will drive around the block looking for one outside their business. I think we've got to get away from the fascination with car parks and realise that in the future more people want to use active transport. And so we know that. It's known around the world. You make it safe for active transport and much more people will use it. So I definitely support it.
Excellent. Well, thank you to our panellists. We'll have more questions to come. Back with you in a moment. Welcome back to Local Body 2013 with our first group of panellists in the final section on Central Ward shows this week on Dunedin Television. Continuing with questions, this time two quickfire questions to half our panel each. I'll start with a question to the sitting City Councillors, Chris and Ginty. Chris, looking at the recent survey, the residents' opinion survey, obviously the things have improved. I think it was a 54% level there. What do you think is being done well, and where do you think things could still be improved?
I think as a council we've focused very much on trying to engage the community more, to actually bringing the community into the council chamber so that they understand where we're going. I think those sorts of things make it much, much better in terms of people's response to council.
Ginty, 54%, what do you think is still letting the side down?
I agree that we've made some big strides in terms of community engagement. I think that we need to do more. So that's where I would see increased emphasis over the next 3 years.
Excellent. For the other two candidates, let's look at the issue of the tertiary education sector. It's seen as one of the city's big assets. What role do you think the council should be playing in helping promote and build opportunities in this area? Tat, firstly to you.
I think it's really important that Dunedin continue to market itself as a smart city where first-class education can be gained. The partnerships we have with the tertiary institutions in town are strong. They need to be strengthened and really, make the most value out of that.
Conrad, tertiary education sector, obviously the university, the Polytech and more. Where do you see that the council was playing a role in there?
Oh, it's a very big role. We've had a lot of negative things happening with university, with the behaviour of the students and things like that. But I think we've got to look at the reason why the students aren't coming. Do we get involved and say, right, come down here, we can organise these things for you, rather than being drunk and debaucherous out here. We can organise a place for you to have your fun here, get them down here and rebuild that vibe of Otago University, which is New Zealand's best university. We've got to get that happening again, rather than slamming them and saying, oh, it's no fun down here. Create an environment for them and we'll get them back.
Conrad, thank you. Back to a question for the whole panel, and the issue of drilling has raised its head during elections this year. It was announced recently that Anadarko was set to drill a New Zealand $129 million test well off the coast of Otago Peninsula next January, with the hopes of striking reserves of natural gas or maybe oil. Shell's also considering test drilling. For the panel, and I'll start at the end with Conrad this time, is this something you support?
Well, it's out of our hands, obviously, with regards to the actual drilling. I'm for, obviously, using our port as a thoroughfare to get this commodity. I sort of get frustrated when I hear that it's about oil and gas, when I understand it's just gas only. We've got to stop thinking big picture, that they're not going to be buying houses or they're not going to be spending big dollars here and all that. We've got to start thinking about the small jobs as well for the little people that need a job, as opposed to, I'd like to see little jobs getting created to build a base so we can start building again.
Excellent. Chris, obviously, as Tony's mentioned, the 60 kilometres out is the decision of central government, but as a local council, is that something we should be supporting?
I think I have some difficulties with drilling for oil in very difficult environments, but given that decision's out of our purveyance, then I think we've got to focus on what are the outcomes that will be best for the city as this exploration goes ahead. Anadarko are one of the most experienced deepwater drillers, so I guess that does eliminate some of the risk, but we still have to be conscious of that risk, and I think we've got to be putting our hand up and saying to government, if you're going to put us in that position of risk, we need more share of the royalties that you get.
Ginty, obviously a high-profile campaigner against this, but obviously since both companies are saying the focus is very much on natural gas, does that limit the risks?
I don't think it's about the local risks. I think it's about the big picture. As a globe, we've already found more than 5 times the amount of fossil fuels that we can afford to burn if we're to have a chance at a safe climate future. So as far as I'm concerned, in the absence of a global agreement to limit what we're going to burn, I can't support gas or oil off our coast.
And Tat, for you, what do you see as council supporting local drilling?
I think it's really important for people to realise that it'll be at least 5 or 10 years, maybe even more, for any real activity to occur. That's the time frame I see that the city has to distinguish itself with other economic options, greener and cleaner ones.
Excellent. Continuing with a question for all panellists, every election we do here, and we've already heard a little bit this evening, candidates talk about wanting greater consultation and engagement with the community. It's always found difficult though, especially when few people turn up to public forums. What's the answers and where can we move in this modern era? I'll start with Tat this time. What do you think? How do you think we can engage more with the community?
Yeah, I think there's an old saying about if Muhammad won't go to the mountain, or vice versa. I'll be a councillor who will get out there and really engage with the community. Online, social media, I think Ginty's been a pioneer in that, but really to continue that and to make it really easy for people to get through what could otherwise be a complex process.
Excellent. Conrad, obviously it's important for the council to engage with the community. How can it be done better?
Well, we need to engage those businesses that are successful in Dunedin and leading the way. Need to get out of City Hall and get up the street and start talking to people, look them in the eyes and ask the question, what do you want, how are you feeling, that sort of thing. Start engaging, actually start talking to people face to face. We get with technology going on, we get stuck behind laptops, talk on cell phones, texting and things like that. We've actually got to start talking face to face with people.
Excellent. Chris Staines, for you, what's your thoughts? Obviously public meetings don't necessarily often attract a lot of people. What's the answer?
Well, I think councillors all have an obligation to be out in their community. I speak a lot with businesses around the city and in many organisations, and so I get a feel for what the community is thinking. However, I also think that over a number of years the city has held public consultation and not actually listened. And I think this council has done much more to try to engage, listen, and then deliver a change to recognise what's been said. And I think that as people get confidence in that, more will be prepared to come out.
Excellent. And Ginty, for you, obviously, as has been mentioned, online is a way of the future. Perhaps with public meeting forums not as successful as they were in the past?
Look, I think that we've done some neat stuff online this time around the People's Panel and around social media. And I think, as Chris says, really listening and implementing what people do tell us, because we do get a lot of submissions during annual plan time, and it's a matter of translating those into action. But I also think that we need to be leveraging off our cultural facilities, our galleries, our museums, even our swimming pools, things like that, to harness that as another way of reaching people. So I'd like to see more work in that area.
Excellent, thank you, Ginty. And thank you to our panel this evening for the first half, to Chris Staines, Ginty McTavish, Tat Liu and Conrad Steadman. Thanks for your time this evening. Stay with us after the break. We've got another set of 4 candidates standing in the Central Ward. Back soon.